Hey everybody, it's the Vegas Bad Boys of podcasting. Matt Michaels here with Cincy Steve, Simon Street, and DJ Impact is not with us today because he is on a quest to find those fuzzy white slippers. May you find them in peace, and may they still be in one piece.
Or not worn by somebody with bigger feet than him.
Yeah, or smell your feet.
Facts.
There you go. Yeah.
It's our three count. We got three topics here this week that we're going to dive right into. The first one comes from Sportskeeda.
Yeah.
And it is I thought Triple H was going to make the WWE better. Wrestling World has a meltdown after announcement of Roman Reigns Logan Paul confrontation segment on SmackDown. Story goes like this: Wrestling fans are furious after Chief Content Officer Triple H invited Logan Paul to confront the undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns on SmackDown. The Tribal Chief was recently a guest on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast. After the interview, Paul mentioned that he was eager to wrestle Reigns and believed he could emerge as the winner. This led to a battle of words between the two parties. And to settle things, the CCO of WWE invited the YouTube sensation to SmackDown. However, the WWE Universe was not happy with Logan challenging the Tribal Chief this early in his pro wrestling career. I got some examples of some of these tweets at WWE, at Logan Paul. If he gets a title shot while other athletes get overlooked, I'm so done with WWE. At WWE, can't even use real wrestlers. Laughed my ass off. WWE at Logan Paul, this fella is actually challenging Roman. Uh, and then some people had no interest in seeing YouTube sensation on the blue brand. WWE at Logan Paul, who want to have this guy challenge Roman, huh? He's a kid. He should be performing on NXT Level Up. And nobody want Logan Paul. Everybody want Bray Wyatt. So give us Bray. And of course, the final one at WWE at Logan Paul. Can't wait to boo him live, which is hysterical because this is happening in Saudi Arabia. So CJ, the chosen one, uh, at Live for WWE. I hope you get those tickets for Saudi because it seems like you really want to boo it live. And then finally, of course, I thought at Triple H was going to make WWE better. All right. So Simon Street, you brought this up. Very interesting, right? This is something that no matter what you do in this world, it just comes down to everyone just wants to bitch and complain. And Simon, what's your take on everything?
Well, it's like I always like to say, if you think pleasing everybody is the way to go, you're only gonna screw yourself in the end. And that's what Triple H isn't doing right now. Triple H is actually making a smart decision. Even better than some of his predecessors probably would have done. Because the predecessors would have made this same ass match and put the title belts up on the line. For what? We don't know. But he's using a good opportunity to showcase a champion. And I'm going to say right now, Logan Paul is a champion. He may not be crowned with gold dripping around his waist, but this man right here is utilizing social media to the fullest extent. Him and his brother have been down since day one. They was doing YouTube videos when YouTube wasn't even out of the mouth of everybody else. I don't even like dude, but I appreciate his hustle. And at the end of it all, what bigger stage? Because real talk, the same people that's bitching and complaining about this was the same people that was bitching and complaining. Oh, I don't know. Back when he faced against what was that guy named? Oh, Floyd Mayweather. It was an entertaining match. It was entertaining. Were you not entertained? I was entertained. I really want to see him get his fucking block knocked off. And you know damn well we all want to see Roman Reigns spear the shit out of him. Make his soul go back like he could ball in Mortal Kombat. But at the end of the day, it's good because everybody on Twitter has a platform to have a goddamn opinion. And thank goodness that we live in the great United States of America where you can have an opinion. But like all opinions, it came out your ass because Triple H, and that's why I showed this because we all want to laugh about this, but Triple H is smart, right? He uses the opportunity. The Saudis are loving it. They're like, oh, we're going to get Logan Paul. We're going to get Logan Paul. Okay, cool. He's a draw. Why would you not use a draw? Y'all was bitching and complaining. We had Oldberg. Who was bitching and complaining? I don't know. Raise your hand. I'm raising my hand. Sin City Steve, raise your hand because I know you wasn't feeling Oldberg. Come on, Matt Michaels. Even your ass didn't like Oldberg. That shit wasn't a draw. We barely lifted up out of our seats when we had Triple H and Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker and Kane. So at the end of the day, yeah, he's young. Yeah, could he have gone to NXT? Possibly. But right now, he's going to Saudi Arabia. This is some cool ass shit. Please, Roman Reigns, spear the shit out of this boy. I'd love to see it. Because that gonna make me rewind that motherfucker back and forth 4 or 5 times.
I mean, Steve, outside of the French Saudi accent, which is just remarkable.
French getting everywhere.
So you look at this, and this is something, obviously, the Saudi, prince has the say on almost everything, right? This is how it's been laid out for the years that they've been doing it now. So this is something that needed to be approved, something that obviously is going to bring extra attention that they can't pass up either. So is this a smart move to present a guy who, let's face it, he's only been in 2 main matches. He's not seasoned. And yet he's going to be on something that is actually called the Crown Jewel, which is, for them, an equivalent of a WrestleMania type of show. Is this the right move?
Without question, it's the right move. In so many ways, it is the right move. Keep in mind, Logan Paul has millions of dedicated social media followers among all of his platforms. Him being on the show moves the needle. I find it really ironic that he's going up against Roman Reigns, who had the t-shirt and claimed that he was the needle mover, when in all actuality, if anybody that is linked to WWE has the capacity to be the needle mover, it is Logan Paul. Right. And that is just the utmost ironic thing, because the guy has clout. He has created his businesses. I mean, Prime is one hell of a great story. And he's got his podcasts and everything that he's doing. He's just in everything, and he's going to do nothing but drive eyes to the product. This is nothing but a winning situation for WWE and for everybody involved, for Logan, for Peacock, for everybody that can stand to profit from this. This is a 100% slam dunk. And yeah, I don't doubt in my mind whatsoever that Roman's going to pick up the win, but you're going to have all those new eyes possibly locking in on WWE programming for what could be the first time.
No, and that's the key there. And I think what fans kind of who are upset by this, first of all, it's hysterical, because why would this? Who cares? It happened. The match is going to be 8 to 15 minutes. That's it. That's your life.
Yeah.
And it will be over. So, but what's really it's not like you have, it's not like you're taking a guy like who is starting out on NXT, let's say, all right, a younger guy, and just throwing him into this big event, and this, he's green, he's this, he's that, he can't do, why is he getting this match, all that. It's Logan Paul. He already has the brand in the name. So the one thing that he showed is that he can take a beating, right? That's what you need to be in a match with Roman Reigns. You need to be able to bump. you probably are going to get about 3 really impressive, cool moves in, right? We're going to get, those couple of highlights that could be made into NFTs. All right. Everything else is going to be Logan Paul getting the shit knocked out of him. And it's going to be something that what's the more interesting thing is because it's in Saudi, Logan obviously is looking like he's the face to this. But are they going to be as receptive to him? What is his following like out there to what the crowd's going to be like? Are they going to be more of Roman fans if they're wrestling fans per se? Or are they going to, side with Logan because X amount of Saudi people know who this guy is and they're able to see his YouTube stuff? That's the other thing I don't know, honestly. I don't know how their YouTube and shit works over there and what they're allowed to see and not see. So, interesting stuff, and like you guys said, more eyes, the better. And how can you deny the fact that if this is going to propel you, especially in mainstream media, which is going to get a lot of coverage on this shit, why not? So very interesting, very cool move. All right, count number 2. And this comes from this comes from thirstyfornews.com is actually what the website is called. And this is NBC Universal might make a play to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. The world is always changing as the media landscape prepares itself for whatever the future holds. While some companies are dumping millions into the metaverse, Comcast might drop an even larger bag on a huge acquisition. The Hollywood Reporter ran a story that some might find quite interesting. Comcast might make a play to buy Warner Brothers Discovery and merge it with their already established NBC Universal brand. And this is from that Hollywood Reporter story. Given the company's daunting challenges, it has become accepted wisdom at the highest levels of the industry that another deal waits in the wings for Warner Brothers Discovery. For reasons related to the complicated structure of that merger, no negotiations can happen until April 2024. But at that point, many industry observers believe that Comcast's Brian Roberts will make a long-awaited move, looking to combine NBC Universal and Warner Brothers Discovery. That deal would face some interesting antitrust issues, but would give his company scale and a viable streaming service. Obviously, Peacock sucks, says one exec with knowledge of both companies. There are some good synergies. I'm sure Roberts is licking his chops because the WBD stock is so low. And I think that's the end game to get the place sold. It could be a landmark deal that would create an industry juggernaut. Only time will tell if Comcast pulls off the deal. But nobody thought a cable channel would actually buy NBC until it actually happened. All right, guys. So I brought this out because of the fact that, we've talked over the years about the WWE potentially selling their company, right? And we've seen WWE work with NBC Universal for years and years and years, going back to USA and how all that stuff has transformed over the years into that one company, and now working again with Peacock and the streaming service. And now you have Warner Brothers and Discovery, who, of course, are the ones who have AEW on their television. And if you think about the idea of Tony Khan acquiring ROH because of the idea that he wanted video library to then have a streaming platform, and if they were to put that on WB Discovery, would that be something that would help them, get that type of money? But in the end, what's interesting is if AEW is able to maintain their contract and they maintain an interest, and then this deal happens, I don't think any of us ever thought of the idea that both wrestling companies could be owned, have television deals owned by the same company, which is kind of mind blowing. I don't know, Simon, what do you think about that potential that, the not only in the wrestling aspect, but just in, entertainment in general, having such a huge potential conglomerate, a couple years out potentially, but still those 2 years, as you've said here, years go by quick. And the next thing we know, we're going to be talking about potentially WWE and AEW being, televisionally owned by the same company.
You know what? I got to be honest with you. It seems like it could be a very, very good prospect to possibly happen. Let me play devil's advocate. Let's say it does happen. Okay. Let's say NBC is able to pull this one off and both companies end up being under the NBC banner per se, right? I always believe that when you have a big juggernaut, it breeds more motivation for other companies to rise or for new ones to rise. And as we all know, being wrestling fans, that's always good for us, right? The more the merrier, the more that come to the table, more companies find other sources to elevate their platforms. So that's one way that I would look at it in that instance. Like, okay, let's say if it does happen, that'd be cool. The next thing that I think about is a little bit far-fetched. Maybe Mark's Paradise, will you have it? To where you start thinking a little bit unrealistically, like, okay, both companies are now under NBC. Could that means that they could be asked or groomed to work together on future products? And again, I did note earlier, far-fetched fantasy. But that's something that a large group of people who are fans of this podcast and wrestling fans alike, obviously, there's a large enough that think about the same thing. So those are some things I talk about. I think it really would be cool nonetheless, because I think if you have both entities, you can then look at the product and what way can you do distribution, right? Obviously, WWE has done for the most part, good job of distributing. We won't talk too much about Peacock, okay? But for the most part, they have a pretty good portfolio of how they do things, right? Can you imagine if they found a way to level that up, right? And WWE is already poised to keep on that same mark of worldwide branding, right? That could be a huge cap or feather in the cap of NBC. If they get that WWE experience, they take that to the next level, and then they shoot that over to AEW, right? I don't know. It's just some things that when you were reading the article that I thought about, maybe they hit or miss, but that's what's on my mind.
Steve, what's interesting too is that WWE, their DVD distribution, in the last waning years of DVDs here, is through Warner Brothers. So it's very interesting how everything's already kind of intertwined and kind of more and more becoming very incestual when you're talking about media companies and potentially working with these outside wrestling companies. Do you see a world where you can put on your programming on TNT on Monday nights, let's say Raw, and simulcast it? So you have USA and TNT. So now some of your cable packages that might not, if Detroit doesn't get a certain station, but Albuquerque does, now you can, basically you can get Raw or you can get AEW potentially on stations that you might not get in your cable package. Is that something that could be a possibility, or is it really in all honesty, gearing towards the streaming side of things as being the future of what really we have to look forward to as wrestling fans, that we might not even have to really worry about the network per se, but the platform it's on streaming.
Without question. I think that everybody's so wrapped up in, even the comments on this article. The hyperbole is just so palpable that you could cut it with a knife, saying goodbye AEW, blah, blah, blah. So ultimately, at the end of the day, realistically, what would happen is, if NBC Universal did make a play and they did purchase WBD, then that's one thing. Okay. Now, in theory, they could just send AEW packing. They could just, turn right around and cancel that product. I think that we are starting to see less of an independence on strictly the broadcast networks. And you hit the nail right on the head, Michaels. WWE and the WWE network was completely ahead of its time. And nothing that anybody says will prove otherwise. I think that we could start to see a streaming service be an over-the-top based kind of a platform for AEW in the future. And especially if, we've all been talking about, hey, let's get Ring of Honor its own time slot and all this kind of thing. Okay. The easiest way to possibly do that is to have your own streaming platform. And then at that point, you can have an hour of ROH per week. You can do essentially whatever the fuck you want because you're going to be broadcasting it in an over-the-top format. Obviously, I think that it would be a huge blow to AEW and AEW's distribution if they found themselves in this situation. I don't particularly think that this would happen. Moreover, I don't believe that the government would allow it to happen because you would be approaching almost monopoly type of a status. And that's one thing that there are a lot of moving pieces and there are a lot of things that need to be considered with this. Ultimately, I think that in the next couple of years, it will be very interesting for us as wrestling fans to be able to navigate through the entire landscape of everything that's going on. Hell, we saw how much things changed over just the last 2 years. Buckle up. We've got a couple more interesting years ahead of us at minimum, for sure.
Yeah, and the idea of antitrust is very interesting because why the fuck did they allow Warner Brothers and Discovery to merge?
I don't know why to this day on that. So that's largely why I don't think that they would allow NBC Universal to purchase WBD, because already WBD is a huge conglomerate. But if NBC Universal purchases them, somebody would have to step in and not allow that to go through, I would think.
The question is, though, and I think this is what it comes down to. So with the acquisition being as bad as it was because it bought them billions of dollars, into the red.
Yeah.
NBC Universal comes in and buys it at the low stock price, and now you've got it kind of, supported again. So in some ways, they can argue that that's a good thing. And then essentially, you're looking at Disney, who has their, ABC and Touchstone and all that stuff. And then you have CBS, who has Paramount. And then you have, that conglomerate. I don't know if I don't know if antitrust matters anymore. That's the sad thing. So is it money or is it antitrust? And we'll see. And I think that a wrestling product, listen, that has no idea, I don't think this merger would have a big effect. Essentially, more so it's the people who are running Warner Brothers right now.
Yeah.
So that's more what we see in the present. But it's something interesting that came out of nowhere that is just fascinating to think that, when we were, younger, these companies were separate, and now let's face it, everything's going to be owned by Amazon in 10 years anyway, so does it really matter?
Pretty much.
And I just wanted to add real quick, we are coming into probably the last 3 years of the years of acquisitions. I think we've seen more mergers across the spectrum, whether it be gaming, which notably a lot of gaming companies have done this, movies, television. You're going to see a lot of companies in the wake of this pandemic, or at least the intensified part. And it's just interesting to see, man.
Yeah, and it's something to just kind of keep tuned into, and we'll have 2 years to talk about this. So, all right, last topic, our third count is AEW Dynamite scores highest viewership of the year without CM Punk or the Elite, and this is coming from CagesideSeats.com. The ratings and viewership data are in for last night's September 14th episode of AEW Dynamite. Per Show Buzz Daily, Dynamite netted 1,175,000 viewers for a 0.39 rating point in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. Dynamite finished first place in the demo rating on cable for that night. This is the fourth consecutive week where Dynamite eclipsed the somewhat arbitrary round number of 1 million viewers. CM Punk, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega are all currently suspended and off television following their backstage fight at All Out. Even so, this is now Dynamite's highest viewership total of 2022 and its highest demo rating since June 1st. Needless to say, AEW President Tony Khan is very excited about these results. Tony said in a tweet, "Thanks to you, hashtag AEW Dynamite had our biggest audience of the year last night, 1.15 million. Plus, we made it 16 straight Wednesdays in cable's top 2 shows in 18 to 49 demo. At AEW One TV, number 1 show on cable last night. See you tomorrow for a huge Rampage on TNT. Last stop before Grand Slam." Who really needs Punk in the Elite when you still have Jon Moxley, Jericho, Danielson, Britt Baker, MJF, Swerve Our Glory, Lucha Brothers, and the Pizza Guy all ready to step up and take their spots? Maybe Punk and the Elite aren't so critical to AEW's bottom line after all. And AEW has been building up to next week's Grand Slam shows in New York City, where a new world champion will be crowned, Danielson. It's natural to conclude Dynamite can do even better numbers for the big payoff matches following the last 2 weeks of television. All right, Steve, you are the resident AEW lover. Tell us, lover, what is it about the current situation that is gotten people to watch, and why is it that CM Punk is a cancer on this business?
So I find it extremely funny that this will end up being the third company which Bryan Danielson wins a world championship after CM Punk leaves a promotion in a huff.
100% true.
Ring of
Facts,
Honor,
as you would say.
WWE, and now AEW. So good to know that we're all in agreement that Danielson should be the one to walk out of Arthur Ashe with the championship, or at least walk out of that match. Yeah. If you have MJF cash in the chip immediately after, that's another thing. But I personally think that they had to do this. They had to focus on their talents, and it's very promising that this episode of Dynamite had the biggest rating and the biggest demo in quite some time, and it didn't feature any of the EVPs. It also didn't finish CM Punk. It didn't feature CM Punk. So it's one of those things that's very, very interesting. And it does tell you that there is star power on this roster other than the guys that started the company and, the guy that's been just, sent straight to the top. It's very, very not just promising, but it's very interesting to see how they choose to do things this coming week at Arthur Ashe, not just on Dynamite, but also with Rampage and in the weeks after that as well. I think that, Tony has hired some people to strictly focus on the analytics and the data. So I definitely believe that he's seen this specific, this kind of specific data set in play. And I'm sure that he's aware that, they did these numbers without those people. And it's very, very interesting. Will we see more of a focus on homegrown talents? I did notice that they mentioned that phrase several times during the Darby Allin Matt Hardy match, referring to Darby Allin as, getting infinitely better over the last 3 years, and that he is somebody that is a homegrown talent that they're looking to build around. So, yeah, I really think that they need to do this. And also the John in the chat, he makes a great point. He says, eliminate the conflict of interests of the EVPs, then the company can be booked with less pissing contests or less pissing matches. What a concept. I completely agree. I think that anytime that you have active roster participants as vice presidents or higher ups in your company, that is a recipe for disaster. So genuinely, we need to see what happens next. I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. And Danielson needs to walk out of Arthur Ashe with the championship.
Simon, the EVPs in this point, which is something to really kind of take into consideration, and that is the EVPs are the one who started the company. So, how do you do it? How do you say to these guys, okay, well, you no longer have any control? And at this point, do you let those guys walk when their contracts are up? Of course, if you do that, you also know that the WWE now gets a new stable of Cody Rhodes, Omega, and the Bucks. What do you do?
Well, I think we've all been talking about it. Go with your homegrown talent. You know what I mean? I think that it puts you in more of a creative control, and that's nothing against those guys that you mentioned, the EVPs and CM Punks alike. They do bring with them an entourage and a certain amount of, eyes on them wherever they go. But I think the thing that I find interesting is my personal opinion of just looking at AEW from the start. What got me excited about AEW was the excitement of people who were no names, or people who were upstarters, or people who didn't get recognized in WWE, not even given the time, an opportunity, or a shot. They could go to have another option that wasn't a smaller in scale, no disrespect to the smaller promotions that they have out there, and actually have a chance to showcase their talents and to create their own legacy, right? I do believe that AEW kind of got away from that a little bit. And that's just my opinion. I think a lot of it had to do with, going head up per se with, WWE in that amount of time. And I think that when you're in a fight and it comes down to survival, you're going to do what works, not what will ensure victory, even if that is at the cost of what your identity is supposed to be. And I think that these next couple of steps of whatever TK is going to do, AEW is going to do, is really going to solidify what kind of legacy they want to leave, whether that's going to be long-term or short-term. I'm not going to echo everybody's sentiments, but for almost every person I've spoken to who's a die-hard AEW fan, such as Sin City Steve, they have been all hard on for new talent, new faces, getting opportunities, going hard in the paint, with an attitude of, we don't give a shit, we're here now, this is what we're going to do. With that said, I don't mind Daniel Bryan or Daniel Bryanson, because he's always been a person that has come across as someone that doesn't mind passing the ball. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense, that terminology? He's somebody that has those same attributes of, hey, we want younger talent. So even if he had the belt, I could see him elevate a younger talent in a match against him. I also feel that Chris Jericho also too has taken some ownership in the last couple of weeks, really being outspoken on a lot of stuff. And I don't want to go down that road because y'all talked about it last week. But he's another person that sees the bigger picture. So to answer your question, Matt Michaels, I think that AEW is better off with the CM Punk and the EVPs, aka the Elite. Now, if they want to stay on the company, great, but they shouldn't be a part of the main show. They should be doing everything that they can to facilitate the role of promoting and elevating younger talent, because that's what I thought AEW was about from the beginning.
Well, and there's quite a bit of contrast and conflict amongst that, because John also pointed out here another food for thought. Cody was an EVP before he left to return to WWE, and now look at the state of the EVPs in AEW. Was Cody the crazy glue that held it together? No, Cody was the one who was forced out. The EVPs, the Elite, they were the ones who, they're the ones who got buddy with Tony, right? So when Cody was coming up and stuff, there's no doubt that those guys were squawking behind backs and, setting a bad, putting the bad stuff out there to get people riled up about Cody Rhodes, right? So, without those guys around, it might not be a bad thing, right? On the same flip-flop, you got to look at CM Punk, and you're talking, youth and opportunities. Well, that selfish motherfucker has been nothing but himself, self-obsessed. But you got a problem, because CM Punk is your highest rated guy if you break down the segments. So even though you're pulling this number without CM Punk, the question is, if you bring back CM Punk and he does a segment in, let's say, the last half of hour one, then are you going to be able to retain the eyes who are there for CM Punk through hour two, which has been something they've had a problem with? So it becomes a very big, decision for one person to make. That's the problem. It's not the EVPs. It's not CM Punk. It's not anyone in the company. It's that your owner of the company doesn't know what the fuck he's doing in terms of being able to handle these people. Say what you want about Vince McMahon and his booking, right? And the way that stuff was done like that. You can complain all you want. But the one thing, hands down, and Eric Bischoff would probably even, has said or would say, that the difference between WCW and WWE is WCW had all these fucking people trying to do this, that, or the other with it. And he felt that he couldn't get everything he wanted to get done because of all these different factions and things, whether it be network or whether it be, Kevin Nash booking or now Kevin Sullivan booking, and just all this. Vince McMahon, that was it. And if you did something wrong, he disciplined you. He fired you. He gave you a raise. He gave you a push. That was it. Tony sat there in a press conference looking like a chicken, because all he was doing was bopping his head like, what's going on? What's going on? Oh my God, I don't know what's going on. That's not a boss. That's not a leader. That's a guy who has, a moment where he's basically shitting himself going, the fuck did I get myself into? And he's in a bad position because he made friends with all these guys. And the worst thing you can do in business is make friends with the people that you're trying to make money with. Because
100%.
Yeah, you have to be able to fire guys. You have to be able to not let them control you and what your outlook is for the company. So, unfortunately, I think that that's what it comes down to is that, hey, if your ratings are going up and you're getting followers now who become eyes that are sticking with you, why would you poison it again? Why would you bring any of these guys back? And even more so, you look at what the contract time is, and I would pull the ultimate boss move, and that is, you know what, guys? You're all staying at home. When the contracts are up, if you guys want to seek out other opportunities, whatever, go ahead. But until then, enjoy your Domino's pizza and the fucking pizza guy, and and that's it. So it's a
Can I
very
ask a question?
interesting thing. Yeah.
And I know you've said this a lot too, that TK is self-glorified Money Mark. My question to y'all, do y'all think that TK honestly has some resentment with hearing that be talked about him?
100%.
Because that I would feel some sort of way if somebody labeled me as a money mark. I would feel like, I don't have my own mind. I'm basically a hoe with money.
Yeah, I'll tell you. If you go back, you can just listen to the pre-press conferences that Tony would do with media before the big shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that was very fascinating is that when those started, they started with Cody, by the way, okay? Because Cody was the face. He was the one speaking. And then Tony decided that he needs to get his share of attention. That's another problem. So when Tony started taking questions, if someone asked him a question that was basically questioning the decision making or why something wasn't working in the company, he would get defensive and he would basically kind of start shouting at the person, and trying to act tough, like, why are you attacking our company? And what you started seeing, and if you look at, go back and you listen to these, the people who end up asking questions now, the people who are at the scrum as well, these are all people who they trust and know that are not going to, throw out these questions that will make Tony mad. These are all pat on the ass questions nowadays. So it's kind of changed. It's evolved because Tony doesn't want anything negative. He just wants positivity, which goes to the scrum and makes me think that, yes, people are saying, oh, some of it must have been a work. It wasn't a work. But what did happen, I'm pretty positive that the person who set the question in motion for CM Punk was given that question by CM Punk beforehand. Tony didn't know that was going to happen. And Punk got in everything he wanted to say because I think it was 2 weeks earlier, he had basically said, just wait for the press conference. And, so that's another thing. You're running press conferences after your shows. If you can't control your guys, why are you even doing it? It's stupid. And it was an hour and a half press conference after a fucking 5-hour show. Like, that also solidifies the answer of, is Tony on something? Probably, because you just ran a big show and you spent your whole day, and now you can go for an hour and a half in a press conference? What are you on, dude? Because that's impressive, and I think we all need some of that, whatever it is. So, and John made another good point here. What's the betting line on No More Scrums? TK stole a UFC standard and obviously doesn't work with the world of professional wrestling. However, John, it does, because the same weekend, the day before, in Scotland, Triple H ran the press conference for the Castle show after the show. And, I didn't hear about Drew McIntyre storming off on a huff because Roman Reigns is still champion. So,
or because for whatever reason Tyson Fury decided to come out and sing American Pie with him.
Exactly.
Well, you didn't like that? That was like the highlight of the show, Steve.
I was actually pretty good. I had a pint and sang along as well.
Fuck that shit.
Come on, mate.
Fuck that shit. Says the guy whose show has the pizza guy show up.
Hey, it's Luigi Primo.
Well, he ain't tossing my dough, that's for sure.
Oh no.
I think it's pretty safe to say that he's not, using flour as long as TK's around.
Using that powder.
Wow. With that being said, we are finally done here on the 3 count for this week. Final thoughts, Simon Street.
I just want to give a big shout out for the Las Vegas or WNBA Las Vegas Aces for winning their first championship. And this marks in history Las Vegas' first pro sport championship. It was amazing. They finished strong, defeating the Connecticut Sun 78-71 in Game 4, winning the series 3-1. Chelsea Gray was, awarded MVP. Quick shout out, to head coach Becky Hammond, first coach, Natalie, and, assistant head coach Tyler Marsh, and the rest of the staff there. A lot of people who may listen to this don't live in Vegas, possibly. They don't play in T-Mobile Arena. They play in a casino. Not that it's a bad venue, Mandalay Bay, but they that's their home. And so shout out to them. I'm so proud of them. I know you guys are proud of them. Everybody in Las Vegas is going to be proud of them. Let's show our love and support, because at the end of the day, they did us proud. And I think there's going to be more to come with a lot of other teams.
That's a good point. Also, Simon, just out of curiosity, do you know who owns the WNBA Aces?
The same owner that owns the Raiders. Yes, I know.
There you go.
Everybody asked me that question like I wouldn't know that.
Well, a lot of people don't.
They don't.
A lot of people in the city don't realize that Mark Davis bought an interest into that team, and his first championship comes with the WNBA team before the Raiders. So, all right, Steve, final thoughts.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Special thank you to everybody who hung out with us tonight. Especially John over in the chat. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for hanging out with us. I know that we had Scoop and a few other people in there during Wrestling Talk as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you guys do. Liking, sharing, subscribing, getting the word out about this podcast. We do this stuff for you. And we truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. Also, very special shout out to all the brave men and women serving this country, whether you're on lands foreign or domestic. Thank you for what you do, because it enables us to do what we love to do. And you guys make the sacrifice. So thank you so much. Last but not least, repsports.com, reppsports.com. Go there for all your pre-workout, weight loss, and general energy needs. Again, that's repsports.com. Use promo code Vegas at checkout and save yourself 15%.
There you go. And shout out to DJ Impact. We believe he found his slippers.
Oh.
So that means that he probably will be back next week if he does make it through the treacherous terrain getting back here. He does have dwarves and elves surrounding him on the journey back. So we will hopefully see him back next week, and we'll see you guys next week as well.